of the experiences that I've had during my spiritual journey that started back in 2020 after starting meditations was learning about archangels. And one archangel in particular, which is Archangel Metatron. Now, Archangel Metatron is the leader of all the angels. And then when you talk about the story of Enoch, who was the only man who did not die, he ascended to heaven. And once he was ascended to heaven, God then transformed him into Archangel Metatron. Started researching Metatron. It was confirmed to me that he is always with me, always around me. Now, Archangel Metatron is also known as Archangel Michael in the Bible. They are one and the same, but he was given a different name in the biblical writings. Now, I do recall one time during a very deep meditation, I had an out-of-body experience where I went to this space or this area, probably another dimension. I came across this entity. This entity was about 9 feet tall, and I remember it looking like a totem pole type figure with African makeup on. It was brown in color and had like paint on its face. If you like imagine an African warrior, 9 feet tall, a very menacing looking figure. And standing next to this entity was a family member. And the family member was very scared, crying. So I'm looking at them both and I'm thinking to myself, what's going on here? And then all of a sudden, this entity reached out and hit me or attempted to stab me. It attacked me and I got scared, I got nervous, and all I could think to do during that experience was to call on Metatron. And I called on Archangel Michael. I said, Michael, help me. Out the corner of my eye, I saw Michael, wings and all, fly in at about 300 miles an hour, made contact with this entity, and this thing just exploded. It went away. It wasn't even a battle. Family member was freed, and then that just really, when I saw that, that actually brought me back into my body, just in awe. And the vision was so vivid that I was literally there, and it was something that I will never forget. Another thing that I've learned, or a gift, am able to communicate with those that have passed. And I had this intuition of her grandmother. I started thinking about her. In that moment, the atmosphere in our room became very tense. I could feel it. Now, this wasn't the first time I felt this, I guess, energy, if you will, where the room becomes very, very tense. And then I started getting these communications, these downloads. And her grandmother let her presence be known. The first thing her grandmother said to me was, I was murdered, I was killed. Her grandmother was married to her grandfather. They separated, and her grandfather then married another lady. Grandmother goes on to tell me that when she had went into the hospital, but it was just supposed to be a quick stay. Her health took a turn for the worse while she was in the hospital, and she wound up dying. Her grandmother told me that a lady, specifically the grandfather's new wife, had came in and given her something. And this was back in the late 70s, early 80s. And so I'm being told this information, and I'm like, wow, okay. And then her grandfather appeared, and he said, I love that lady, speaking of her grandmother. So after I was receiving all this information, I told my wife, I said, you know, I just spoke with your grandmother, and she told me that your grandfather's wife came into her hospital room. The new wife was dressed as a nurse, and my wife, her jaw dropped to the ground. She said, you know what? My mom, meaning my mother-in-law, had always said that she believed that her mother was killed. And for me to have that experience talking with her, and then my wife telling me what her mother had always suspected over the years, was just literally mind-blowing to me. And I've had other experiences as well, where I've spoken to people that passed on. And I also remember back in February or March of this year, 2021, I connected with a lady in the UK who was a known channeler. Go into this meeting with the idea or the thought of her channeling anybody. We were just collaborating on some projects. She was telling me about what she does. And she said, hey, would you like to try it? I said, sure. So this is a Zoom meeting. And so she told me what to do. She had me ground myself. She said, she had me take my shoes and socks off. And she said, put my hands on my knees and take several deep breaths and imagine myself connecting with the earth. And I did that for about 2 minutes. And then I said, and she told me, I'm going to channel Dr. King, Martin Luther King Jr. She did her thing. She channeled him and she said, okay, he's here. She said, he's standing over one of your shoulders. I want you to tell me which one it is. She said, don't answer right away. She said, I want you to use your third eye. I want you to really focus. And as soon as she said that, I got this extreme feeling, energy, power energy on my right side. And then I knew that he was on my right side. And she said, yes, he's over your right shoulder. I said, okay. She had me ask him, what is the most important thing that I should be doing in my life right now? He said, don't be afraid. That's what I picked up on. And so I communicated that to her. And she said, yes, but then she said, he has some other things to tell you. She said that Dr. King said he wants me to speak my truth and to speak up and speak out against any and all things that are unjust in this world. That's what I've been doing, and it's just been an amazing experience. There have been events in my life that have taken place since that channeling of Dr. King that has showed me what I'm supposed to be doing along my journey. It was a really, really amazing, unexpected experience. My biggest mantra is something that was revealed to me back in 2014. I actually asked for truth. One day I came home from work, went upstairs in my room. It was a hectic day. I went upstairs, I asked the Father for truth, and I heard in an audible voice, nothing is as it seems. And that was kind of what started my spiritual journey. Then the Spirit said, Dr. King, his father sold him out and was in cahoots in bed with the government. Dr. King was groomed from a very young age by the government and his father to be a leader to the Black community and to the world. Now, I also want to say, I don't want to take anything away from Dr. King. He was a great man and had a pure heart, I believe, in regards to what he was doing. He was human, he wasn't perfect, but he did a lot of good in this world for humanity, not just Black people, for all people. But the Spirit spoke and said, research Dr. King's history. And I learned that his father went overseas when Dr. King was about 5 years old. When he came back, he changed his name. In fact, Martin is not even his birth name. His birth name was Michael. So what I believe was a meeting with government officials. Even if he really went overseas, he might have went to DC for all I know. When he came back from this trip, he changed his name as well as his son's name. And then all of a sudden, they start grooming this child to be this prodigy. He started college at, I think, 14, 15 years old. He became like a preacher in the church at 5 or 6 years old. He was groomed and brought up to be this prodigy child. And then the Spirit spoke and said, look at everyone around Dr. King's father, and you'll realize what happened. And I learned that several people around him came up dead. One of Dr. King's brothers, I believe one of his uncles, and about 4 other people that were in their inner circle. The Spirit explained that these were people that became aware of what was going on. At that point, became a liability. Big thing that his father was working with the government. And then the Spirit said that Dr. King became aware of this soon before he died. And he had a good relationship with the government, but then he started speaking out against the government 2 to 3 years before his death. He started speaking out against the Vietnam War at the time and the way the government was treating not only Black people, but people in general. His message changed. And then soon after that, Dr. King was murdered. So the Spirit revealed to me, again, nothing is as it seems, even though we were told one thing about Dr. King, it was something totally different. It did not go as we were told. That was pretty deep for me. I learned a lot, and the Spirit spoke, and the Spirit confirmed by having me do the research that I did. And no doubt whatsoever, that is how things played out.